Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Doctor's Eyes Only podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Oschman, and today on Doctor's Day Eve, we're actually going to be talking a little bit different, not about finance. We're going to be talking about Doctor's Day, about what it means to me personally, and about what it means to our broader team at Vestia. So, interestingly enough, despite the fact that I have celebrated Doctor's Day for a number of years, been working with doctors professionally for the last 15 years. I grew up with a physician for a father, and so I've been very aware of Doctor's Day existence for a while. I didn't actually know where it came to be or what really its celebration meant until a couple of months ago when I pulled up my phone and I said, you know what? I wonder what the history of Doctor's Day is. I wonder how it came to be. And so I Googled it and I looked at the history. I think it was on the AMA's website. It talked about the history of Doctor's Day. All the way back in the early 1900s, there was a woman who was named Eudora Brown Almond, and her husband, Charles Almond, was a family medicine physician. And she felt like he and other physicians in the community should be thanked for everything that they did for the community. And so she actually started an initiative with red carnations, delivered red carnations to physician practices, to the homes of physicians. They even put these flowers on the graves of physicians who had passed as just kind of an observation of what they had given to the community, their sacrifice, and how grateful the community was for what doctors did for them. So it kind of got me thinking about how I have seen Doctor's Day celebrated in recent years. And a lot of that now centers around social media. So I've seen a lot of people who put up thank you posts to doctors, which I think is great. And I was thinking, doing what I do at Vestia, our clients are specialty physicians and their families. And so we kind of have this unique lens where we get to see behind the curtain and get to know doctors in a way that a lot of people generally don't, right? We're not in the hospital. We're not being cared for by doctors. We really develop great personal relationships and get to see who doctors are as people, what their values are, how hard they're working for their families, and how desperately they're trying to be present at work, at home, doing the things that are important to them. And I started just reflecting on my childhood and kind of my upbringing. My father, a lot of you who've been listening for a while know that my father's an interventional cardiologist, and we grew up in a small community. We would go out to a restaurant for dinner, and someone would come over to the table and say, "Hi, Dr. Law," and wanted to make a point to come over and say hi, and then usually make some kind of comment to us, his family, about the fact that he'd cared for them. Like they were proud of that. They were proud to see their doctor out. They were proud to share that he had taken great care of them. A lot of you probably have islands in your kitchen, and I was thinking about the island in our kitchen and how often there were fruits or nuts or different kinds of produce that my dad would bring home because a patient had brought him something that, again, we were in kind of a rural community, something that they had grown, right, in their orchard or that they had produced at their farm that they wanted to give to my dad as a way to say thank you. And so I had kind of grown up around this, right? Around this idea of people being grateful for the physicians who cared for them and wanting to show some kind of token of that appreciation. And somehow, even despite that, I think the true gravity of what it is doctors do for the community was still hadn't totally landed for me until I had a client who's become a friend over the years who shared a personal story with me about an experience that their family had. She's the wife of a neurosurgeon. She is primarily a mom to their 4 kids because he's very, very busy, working a lot. And we over time have connected over that fact because her kids are kind of living a very similar upbringing to the one that I did, with a dad who's not around a lot. And a dad who's often on call, who gets called in on call, who might be out all night on call. And then, weekend plans have to change because he's too tired to do things. And I think, there's a lot of, when I look back on my childhood, I think a lot about the things that my dad wasn't there for. And I talked about this in our Wealth That Matters episode. He did a really good job of being there where it mattered, and he was there for the important things. And we have a fantastic relationship today. But when I look back, there were a lot of there was a kind of an undertone of a lot of the experiences that I had where it's, Dad wasn't there because he was in the hospital, and he was either in training and he didn't have control of his time, or there were emergencies that needed him at the hospital. So back to this client, she's, doing the hustle and bustle of the weeknight with 4 kids, probably getting backpacks ready and thinking about what was going to be for dinner, who needed to go to the next sports practice or whatever. And there's a knock on their door. And I open the door, and there's a man standing there, and he's carrying takeout bags. And he says, "You don't know me, and we've never met, but 1 year ago today, I know that your husband didn't come home for dinner. And the reason I know that is because he was at the hospital saving my life. So on the 1-year anniversary of thinking about what your husband did for me and about what he gave to me, I wanted to give your family dinner to say thank you for what you all sacrificed so that he could be there for me and I get more time with my family." You probably tell I'm getting a little emotional just recounting this story because it hit me like a ton of bricks. When I heard that story, I stopped in my tracks and I was like, oh my gosh, I have been thinking about this all wrong. Right? When I look back on my childhood, I think about the times that my dad wasn't there, right? Or maybe I wished I got a little bit more. But when he wasn't there, it was because he was literally giving people more life and he was giving family more time with their loved ones. And that's incredible to have that kind of impact on a community, to have that kind of impact on families. And even for the doctors that we work with who maybe don't deal with life or death situations the way that my dad does more frequently, you're improving people's quality of life, right? You're giving people the ability to have a version of their family members maybe they didn't have until they were in your care. And since that, this was a few years ago, it's never dampened on me the impact that doctors have in the community. And more so than that, the choice that doctors make, right? Like medical training is grueling. I remember, my dad had in-house call when I was little. We didn't see a lot of him. I hear clients tell stories of what it is to go through medical training. And you wouldn't do that if you weren't really committed to what it was you were trying to get to on the other side, right? And I don't think you'd keep showing up for the call shifts and keep showing up for the busy clinics if the work that you were doing didn't really matter to you. And yet, if you're in the lucky position that I am, where I've never had to have my life in a doctor's hands, you don't necessarily understand the impact that doctors have and the difference that they truly make. So for me, thinking about Doctor's Day, we went through Doctor's Day during the pandemic, right? March 2020. I'll always remember that Doctor's Day because I actually took time to go through and thank every single doctor in my phone. And that's a lot of doctors. Every single doctor that my personal path has crossed, because I felt like what I was watching, right? And I was talking with doctors probably more than anyone who was not in the medical field during March of 2020, talking about what was going on in the markets and with finances and with practices being shut down and revenue streams uncertain. And I'm thinking, these are the people who aren't sitting and waiting and seeing what this is going to turn into. These are the people who are saying, I have to go. Like I have people that I have to take care of, and I have people who need me to show up, and I have to go. And just the sacrifice, the courage that takes, and just the commitment to getting up every day, to answering those calls overnight. I'm just incredibly grateful for everything that you all do, that you all give to our communities. And I love that we have this day where we all can be encouraged to think about the impact that doctors have had on our lives. For those of us at Vestia who do get to see kind of behind the curtain and understand what your life is about, what you give to your families and what it takes, like what that sacrifice is and what it takes behind the scenes to continue doing what you do and to do it the way that you do, it means a lot to us that we get to partner with you, that we hopefully get to ease your burden a little bit, at least in the financial realm, to allow you to show up better for the people that you love and the people that you care for. So this is why at Vestia, we love what we get to do serving physicians. And this is also why we've made Wealth That Matters such a big part of our mission. Because understanding what it takes for you to do what you do professionally as a physician, what that often means for your loved ones, right? Like the whole family has to be in on the doctor's journey in order for you to be able to do what you do. This is why we ask you to think about your wealth that matters. This is why we ask you to talk to us about your values. This is why we try to get a sense of what truly matters to you and what you're doing it all for, right? Because showing up at the hospital is a choice, but it's also your job. Showing up for your family is what it's all about. I think about, because I try to use some of my experience in order to encourage doctors who are on this journey, who are worried that maybe they're not giving enough. Because you give so much and it is enough. And sometimes just being a little bit more mindful of doing it in the places where it really matters. I really do believe that the quality of time that you're able to spend with your family is more important than the quantity. I say that from a place of looking back on my childhood. I mentioned earlier, right? I had this lens of there were a lot of times my dad wasn't there. Now I have this incredible appreciation for the reason that he wasn't. And I'm like, holy cow. I mean, there are people who are walking around today who are going to get years and years and years more with their family because we gave an hour. And what my dad did really well was when he was home, he made it count. He made a point to do special things with us, to create a lot of excitement around those things and to really be present. And I think that's the reason that we didn't skip a beat in terms of the relationship that he has with family now. Like, yes, the time was limited, but the time mattered. And so us getting to help you with your finances, getting to help you structure contracts, helping you think about what the money that you're saving is really for and what it gives you the bandwidth, what kind of freedom you have because you make that commitment to saving and building your wealth. Like, that's why we do what we do. And that's what I'm thinking about on Doctor's Day. I'm thinking about how incredibly grateful I am for all of you and what you do. Our whole team, all of our advisors are thinking about what we know about you and how well we know you, and the fact that we get to be a small part in your story, helping you do what you do in the community, easing some of that burden so that you can show up better for the people you love. That's what it's all about for us. Once again, I'm Lauren Oschman, partner and CEO at Vestia Personal Wealth Advisors, where we're on a mission to help the highest caliber physicians achieve wealth that matters. If you listen to this today and you're not a physician, please do take the time tomorrow on Doctor's Day to give a heartfelt message of thanks to a physician who's made a difference in your life or a physician who you love. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Vestia Advisors, LLC. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. It should not be construed as legal or tax advice and is not intended to replace the advice of a qualified attorney or tax advisor. This information is not an offer or a solicitation to buy or sell securities. Investing involves risk, including risk of loss. Before investing, you should consider the investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses associated with investment products. Investment decisions should be based on an individual's own goals, time horizon, and tolerance for risk. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. Diversification and asset allocation do not ensure a profit or guarantee against loss. Consult your financial professional before making any investments. Investment advisory services offered through Vestia Personal Wealth Advisors, Vestia Retirement Plan Consultants, and Vestia Advisors, LLC. Securities offered through Osdale Financial Partners, Inc., 5187 Utica Ridge Road, Davenport, Iowa, 52807. Member, FINRA, SIPC. Vestia Personal Wealth Advisors, Vestia Retirement Plan Consultants, Vestia Advisors, LLC, and Osdale Financial Partners, Inc. are independently owned and operated.